This video is being sponsored by Circle.
Circle is a live-action football sweepstake game where the winner is decided by what happens on the pitch.
And tomorrow, during the Spurs game, you can take part in the Shifter Special, which costs £5 to play, and you can win up to £500.
Another bonus is bet 5 to get 5. This means when you sign up using our referral code WeAreTottenhamTV, which is on the screen now, and you deposit and stake £5, then you get a free £5 to play on Circle.
It's a really fun game to play. You have to be over 18 and a UK resident to play, but please gamble responsibly. What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back here for another preview stream for you guys. We have Manchester United at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 8:15 kickoff tomorrow night in a very big game once again. And it's our third manager of the season. It's his first game on Thursday night. It's Ryan Mason 2.0 era begins tomorrow night. He's been in the press conference. He's been talking about the team news and the need to have a big reaction on Thursday night. In terms of the team news, just Lloris is definitely out, isn't he? And Davis and Longley will be having late fitness tests. But how are you feeling coming into this game? How are you feeling with Ryan Mason on board?
It's hard to look. I don't know what to feel because obviously the way it's gone over the last since Conte's gone, it's been dreadful. When Conte's here, it was pretty bad. I think top four is gone for us. Can it get any worse? Well, yeah, we could drop out Europa League spots. We can drop out the Conference League spots, and be mid-table. So I guess technically. Because me personally, I do want Europa League going into next season. Me personally, if we were to pick a competition, obviously I want the Champions League. That's not going to happen. But I would like us to finish that Europa League spot. I would rather be out of Europe than be in the Conference League. So there's a fine balancing act we need to play. If we're going to be shit, we need to either be really shit or like just good enough to get Europa League. We can't be like shit enough to get Conference League, but like that level, that would be bad for me, in my opinion.
For me, with the Europa League, I mean, I prefer to be in it, but at the end of the day, I'm not too bothered if we're in it or we're out of it. Like, it's not going to make too much difference to me.
Yeah, I'm not like desperate to be in it, but I just think it's a competition that if we're in it for next season, I think it is a good competition that you could win. It does give me like a sense of glory if we could win that competition. I think Conference League is a bit different, in my opinion. Anyway, people might feel differently, but look, in terms of how I feel, I'm hoping that there's going to be a reaction. I've kind of lost faith in these players right now, considering how they conducted themselves on Sunday afternoon in a disgraceful manner. Those first 20 minutes were pathetic, and they, quite frankly, they've been pathetic for a long time, but especially the last few games they've ramped it up. The last 20 minutes against Southampton, the last half an hour against Everton. The performance against Bournemouth at times, and especially on Sunday. So I don't believe they're going to be up for the fight to really take the game to Man United, which is what Mason's going to want, in my opinion. I think Mason's going to want to play more attacking. I think he's going to want to be more aggressive. I think he's going to want in front of the home crowd to show a bit more, to get the players to show a bit more passion, get them running a bit more, maybe take the game to Man United. But there are just a few question marks whether we're good enough to do that, whether the players are going to be motivated by Ryan Mason to put in a performance on Thursday, and what kind of Man United turns up, because Man United have been in wretched form away from home recently, but they're still a very good team with some very good players. So you obviously it's going to be a very tough game, even when we're at our best and we're playing well. It's going to be a tough game. So in this moment, especially, I do expect a reaction. I do expect Spurs to show a bit more fight, especially in front of the home fans. I do think, in general, our home form, to be fair, is definitely been a lot better than our away form. Albeit we did lose to Bournemouth at home last game, but it was a closer game with 3-2. We could have easily won that game as well. So I do think at home we've been better, and I do think we're tougher to play against. But off the back of that 6-1 defeat at Newcastle, it's not. I can understand people coming into this game just expecting another bad defeat, another bad performance.
Yeah, when you're looking at like Man U coming into it, their away form as well hasn't been great. Our home form has been fairly good, but on the flip side of that, they've won their last away game. We've lost our last home game. They had quite a convincing victory against Nottingham Forest, where we just got our pants literally pulled down at St James's Park. But look at that. 14 goals conceded in our last 5 games. It's just the absolute disgrace when they've only conceded 2. When you're looking at the defence of Manchester United, obviously a lot of injuries, Varane and Martinez. Does that fill you with confidence, or still it's just like you don't just trust these players at all?
I wouldn't say it fills me with confidence, but it definitely gives us a better chance, 100%, because Martinez and Varane have been vital for Man United, in my opinion. I think their defence is not at the same level without those players. They can definitely be got at. But there's one thing, a defence being vulnerable, but there's one thing, take advantage of that. And people don't realise when a team takes advantage of weak defence, that there's still good play there to be had to take advantage of it. And you still need to be good to do that, because these are still Premier League players who are competent at defending, but they're just not at the same level as the players that are missing. So if we're up for it and we can take the game to Man United and try and really exploit them at the back, it can be done. Sevilla have been having a terrible season in La Liga. They're mid-table, they were in a relegation scrap for a long time, and they took the game to Man United. They pressed really high. Look at the first goal, nicking the ball off Harry Maguire on the edge of the area. That shows you can force some mistakes. But what they were was brave. They were brave. They were aggressive. They believed. And we have to have those elements in our play if we're going to get a result in this game. And I do think it's possible for, as much as we've been terrible, I still think it's possible for us to get a result in this game. I really do. I don't think it's this we're doomed to fail kind of fixture. I do think it's possible for us, if we're careful enough to, if we're brave enough, we're brave enough to go for a result. We can do it. But it's just, I am sick and tired of believing in these players, because I've put faith in them and they've time after time thrown it back in our faces. So I struggle to believe that they're going to be brave in this scenario, because if they couldn't do it in the previous games, what makes me think it's going to be this game they're going to do it? But if we do somehow switch it up, I do think there's points there to be won on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a different kettle of fish when you're talking about Sevilla and Spurs. I mean, Sevilla they've transformed their season in recent months and really have turned it around. And I think they're one of the performing sides in La Liga at the moment, with them playing really well, scoring quite a few goals, winning quite a lot of games. Spurs, on the other hand, I mean, we're just rolling over for everyone that we're playing at the moment. So I struggle to find where this win is coming from, and especially when you look at our past performances against Manchester United. I mean, we're conceding minimum of 2-3 goals a game against them. Obviously, before that we beat them 6-1. But I mean, every time we seem to come up against Man United, we seem sometimes to see good performances, but we can never get over the line, can we? In recent times, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, recently, the game at Old Trafford early in the season, we were actually on a high going into that game. I think we had our best start to the season. Then we went up to Old Trafford playing well, and they end up absolutely turning us over. And it was 2-0, but that was flattering for Tottenham. It could have been a lot worse than 2-0 in that game.
That's probably their best performance of the season.
Yeah, they were brilliant. It was a very complete performance. Before then, we've had some good games. Last season, we went to Old Trafford and played really well, but we were unlucky that Ronaldo just turned up and scored a hat-trick, and that was our undoing. Then we had El Sacico, which we lost 3-0, but you could argue we won that game, but we lost 3-0. That was a dreadful performance.
Well, actually, looking back on it now, can you say that we won that game?
Yeah, but I can still say that because it wouldn't have been better carrying on with Nuno? I don't think so.
Well, I think Nuno would have got sacked anyway at some point in the coming days or weeks after that. But Man U have gone to go get Erik ten Hag, and look how they're doing this season, and look how we're doing this season. So I mean, the trajectories of the two clubs again have gone in different directions.
Completely. And they got Ragnick, and then they ended up getting rid of Ragnick at the end because they didn't even like the way he was managing. And then look, they were patient. They got Ten Hag, and they end up doing quite well this season. To be fair to them, they've won a League Cup. So I guess if you're comparing Man United and Conte over the long term, Spurs and Man United over the long term, after that game, maybe you have a point. I think in the short term, I still think we got the better deal. But right now, 100%. Man United are on the right path, for sure. They've got a way of playing, and they're looking good at the moment. And it's more how he's got them playing rather than the position that they're in, which has got Man United fans so excited because they've been in similar positions before without the same kind of belief that they seem to have right now.
Yeah, I was about to ask that. Like, what is the difference now? Because everyone's saying that this is the best season for Manchester United since post-Fergie, right? And under Jose Mourinho, they finished second, they won a cup. But this season, they're going to finish probably third and win a cup, maybe even 2 cups. But let's say they finish third and win a cup. Why is this season being looked at in a better light than maybe the Mourinho season?
I think a lot of it is perception, but I just think a lot of it is he's got them playing a lot better football, which Man United fans want to see. He's got them playing aggressive, a brave style of play, which gets a lot of players forward. They're getting a lot of creative players in and around the penalty area. They're kind of rotating between Eriksen and Bruno, kind of in that double pivot role, and it's still functioning. Whereas before, they had constantly had years of Fred, McTominay in that role. Stodgy performances pretty much year in, year out. And even when they got big wins, that was obviously great at the time, but it never seemed like it was sustainable. Whereas now they're getting these good technical players on the pitch, getting them possession-based, on the front foot in most games. And yes, there's been hiccups this season, but I think by and large, I mean, do I think, like, factually it's been the best season since post-Fergie? In my opinion, no. But when it comes to them actually believing in like a future for Man United and a process, I think this is probably the most they've believed in a process since post-Fergie, for sure, just because it's the way they're playing, how they're getting the wide forwards involved. Then you can see that with some certain upgrades in certain positions, like up front, maybe one of the fullbacks, with certain upgrades, I think you can clearly see where this Man United side is heading. And whereas maybe previously before that, they were kind of getting the max out of like some like highly paid for players, and it wasn't enough to maybe get them to where they want to be. Whereas you can see now, if they can get some key signings, they could be a real force. And I think at the moment, that's what's making them believe.
Do you not think that maybe they're being overhyped a little bit in the media by the Man United fans? I mean, when you're looking at the talent that they do have there, I mean, they've got some world-class talents in Casemiro, Eriksen, Varane, Rashford, up-and-coming players like Antony. They've got Bruno Fernandes as well. I mean, they've got some top players there. So do you not think they should be doing better than what they're doing in the league?
Not necessarily, because I think Ten Hag's first season, they've got loads of good talent, but I think when you've had years of, you had Oli and you had Jose, I think it takes time to build a system and build a way of playing to perfect it. And I think they've got good players, and I think they will get even better the longer they stick with Ten Hag as well. Obviously, they're Man United, and with that bigger name, they're going to be, they're always overhyped. Every year they're overhyped, and I think there is an element to that as well. But I do believe that their style of play and how, I think it is very different to how it was in the previous years. So I do think people see improvement. I do think, if they lose this game on Thursday, I don't even think top 4 is guaranteed for them, to be honest. It's not from Tottenham, but from other teams. And I think they've still got a battle on their hands. And considering all the injuries, nothing's guaranteed. If they were to drop out the top 4, then I think there's a bigger discussion to be had. But if they do finish in the top 4 or top 3, and have a decent end to the season and have a trophy in the bank as well, I think there's a very good platform to build on going into next season.
Do you think they're as reliant on Rashford as we are on Harry Kane?
I would say,
I kind of feel like if you take Rashford out of Man United this year, and I don't even know if they make the top 4 or even close to the top 4.
I think they're very reliant on Rashford. I think that's absolutely right. I think he's really stepped up for them this season. You look at their other players, they spent 100 million on Antony. He's kind of settling into the Premier League, although Bruno's having a good season, in my opinion. Eriksen's having a good season. I think they're relying on him to score goals, but I don't think they're relying on him as a team, in my opinion. Like, they're still quite functioning. Like, for Tottenham, like, we can't function as a team that well, but Harry Kane can pull us out the bag. Whereas Man United can function as a team very well, but they're just very reliant on Rashford to score goals. But it doesn't mean their team doesn't play well without Rashford. They can still dominate the games and they can still force chances. But in terms of actually scoring the goals, they're going to struggle without someone with elite finishing like Rashford, because Anthony, Sancho, Weghorst, Martial, all good players, but they don't have the finishing ability as someone like Marcus Rashford does right now, or they haven't settled fully like Anthony just yet. So I would say as a team, they're not as reliant as like we're relying on Kane to play well for Tottenham to play well. I don't think they're relying on Rashford to play well for Man United to play well, is my point. But they are, in terms of goals, they are just as reliant on Rashford as we are on Kane in terms of goals.
Yeah, and I think that kind of makes sense when you're looking at the last two games that Rashford didn't play. 2-0 win away at Nottingham Forest, which is an impressive result, seeing as Forest have been really good at home all season. And 2-2 at home to Sevilla, where they were 2-0 up for the majority of the game, and they just let it slip right at the end. And you're not exactly going to account that to Marcus Rashford being there or not being there. So, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on that one. I mean, he's got 15 goals and 4 assists this season. He is having his best season of his career, isn't he?
He's absolutely brilliant. And imagine there was talks of him leaving at points. You know, he wanted a new contract. Some Man United fans were happy to see the back of him. He's had injury problems. I remember during lockdown he had a really bad back injury. And it's maybe taken him a while to recover from that. But I think you could always see there's some star quality in Rashford. Not necessarily like, I don't think he's like he got great skills, or I don't think he's like there are some aspects where he's not amazing. But what he's really good at, his positioning's good, his timing of the runs is brilliant. He's great running in behind, and what he has is a dynamite shot. His finishing is absolutely top class. Is so powerful. He can get them in the corners as well. In terms of being a wide forward, I think only Son is probably a better finisher than someone like Rashford in the Premier League right now from that position. He's so deadly, and I think that comes probably from his time as a striker. I think he uses that composure in front of goal when he gets in that position. He's not one of those who's going to like beat his man and create chances and crosses from that position, but he will be absolutely a difference maker when it gets into the when he gets an opportunity to score. He really is that difference maker.
Yeah, absolutely. If you bring on the predicted lineup for Manchester United, extensive injury list with Martinez, Van der Beek, Varane, McTominay, Bruno and Garnacho, which are all pluses for us, to be honest, being out, maybe Van der Beek aside. But when you're looking at this team, it's still a star-studded team. I mean, it's a makeshift back four, really, with Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Shaw and Dalot. There's a potential for Maguire to play there, but we do think Shaw. Eriksen and Casemiro in the middle of the park. I mean, that's going to be a key area, isn't it? Casemiro has been absolutely brilliant, apart from when he is on the pitch for Manchester United. Eriksen is one that's always going to break my heart, because, I mean, we were sitting here time and time again in the summer talking about how much we want to see Eriksen back at the club. Didn't happen, ended up at Manchester United, and they're reaping the benefits for it for sure. Anthony is also an interesting one, because he didn't come in and hit the ground running completely, but I feel like Anthony, the more and more the season progresses and the more we're coming to the end of the season, you're seeing him get more used to the English football, aren't you?
I agree with that, and I think last few games I'm actually seeing him getting a lot more involved in the game. I thought he started like a house on fire. I think he scored in 3 consecutive games at the start of the season, and then he kind of dropped off a bit, and I felt like he didn't understand how to be involved in all facets of the game. I felt like he only wanted to be involved when it was on the right hand side and he was able to take people on. Other than that, he seemed like very disinterested, and a lot of the time he was like he was just very anonymous for a large part of the season. He couldn't get involved in the game, but I think something's clicked recently over the last few games, and he's definitely now starting to get a lot more involved, starting to get a lot more shots off, taking people on, being a lot more effective. And I felt like maybe at the beginning of the season he always wanted to do a trick and he just wanted to be flashy, and now
flicks and all that.
Yeah, and now he's a lot more interested in creating chances, a lot more interested in getting shots off and being effective in the final third, and that's doing his game a world of good, because he's got a lot of qualities. He's fast, he's got a really good accuracy on that left foot, he's got really good close control as well, so I think he's starting to use those qualities a lot more effectively, rather than always just just trying to do tricks and stuff, which maybe he was guilty of before.
Another player as well who joined them in January, Marcel Sabitzer. I've been really impressed with him since he's joined, and obviously Rashford on the left, and then Martial up front, who really hasn't done much at all this season when he's been on the pitch. But moving on to Spurs, we're going into a bit of an unknown tomorrow with Ryan Mason 2.0. He has been speaking in the press conference, and he's saying he's putting his hat in the ring pretty much for the managerial job for next season. He's saying he's completely ready. What would your opinions on it be if he does do really well from now until the end of the season, and we do finish the season really strongly, and he gets the job?
How would I feel if he gets the job? Obviously, I would be behind him. I wouldn't be super excited about it because I don't know if someone like Ryan Mason at his age with his experience is the right person to head Tottenham into a new era and the right person to trust with a project. If Ryan Mason is going to work, you need to go through the Arteta route. You need to literally, whatever shit, unless you're literally going to get relegated or like you're finishing bottom half, you need to literally ride out the shit and you need to stick by him by any means necessary and just go for it. Now, with someone like Arteta, Arsenal had that trust with it. Whatever, maybe it was because he won that FA Cup early on, but he got that trust from the board. So even though they went 8 games on an 8-game losing streak, they kept him on. Even though they had consecutive 8th place finishes, they kept him on. Now, if we hired Mason and in January he goes on an 8-game losing run, do you think he's going to stay? No chance. Absolutely no chance. We're going to sack him. So I like, unless you're going to go through that route where you're literally sticking by him, I don't see the Spurs board doing that. I don't see the Spurs board having the patience with him where it could take 2 or 3 years to really get where someone like Mason could bring us, because he's going to have to learn on the job as well. That's the thing. So I think that's why I wouldn't do it, because I don't think we're in a position to be patient with someone like Mason. Whereas Nagelsmann, I think, even let's say Nagelsmann also went on an 8-game losing run. I think because of his experience and because of his previous, that could earn him a bit more patience than someone like Mason, who at the first sign of trouble, I wouldn't be surprised if his ownership kick him out straight away.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that with any manager to come in. At the first sign of trouble, they're usually gone anyway, no matter who they are, to be honest. And that goes for Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, or Ryan Mason, whoever it may be. But in terms of like maybe the system that we're going to be playing tomorrow, who knows what we're going to be playing, but we do have our hands tied behind our back with injuries a little bit. Potentially Davis and Longley could step in, but how do you see us setting up tomorrow?
It's a great question. Mason was asked about this in his press conference. He said, I think from my point of view at the moment is to get some sort of energy and some sort of positivity back in the group, but not only the group, the fans and the club have to be realistic, as when you have 2 training sessions or 3 training sessions before 2 games, it's hard to change a great deal, but I would hope and expect towards the end of the season that everyone, not only inside but outside, will see my stamp and our stamp on the group. So it doesn't inspire me much confidence there that there's going to be big changes in terms of formation wise. Obviously we did go to a back 4 last time. That was it massively failed. So I guess the expectation would be we go back to a back 3 on Thursday. What I would say is, for all the talk of the back 4 failing, and definitely it did, but I don't think the back 4 failed because we went to a back 4. In essence, I think it was a big part of the problem. I think our defenders were massively exposed, but I also think when you go to a back 4 and you're telling the team to be more aggressive, the whole point of it is you get the team higher up the pitch, you have more players around the players in the front line to keep possession and play around the opposition, play around their press, get the ball out wide. And when you do lose possession, because you're higher up the pitch, you can pounce and you can be aggressive and you can hound the opposition higher up the pitch, so that if you make fouls there, then it's a little further away from goal. If you make tackles, you're closer to the opposition's goal. Now, the big problem on Sunday wasn't that we went to a back 4, is that we went to a back 4 and we didn't press high, we weren't aggressive, we allowed all the time on the ball, and the defenders had absolutely no, and because of that, the defenders had absolutely no defensive mindset at all, and it was a complete shit show. But just because of that, for me, I don't think it's because we went to a back four as a shit show. It's how we use that back four and how we use that formation, which was a massive issue and caused that absolute disaster. So for me, if someone like Ben Davies, like I don't know if Mason wants to go to a back four, but if someone like Ben Davies is fit for Thursday evening, it wouldn't totally shock me if he went with it again and just went with Porro, Romero, Dyer, and Davis in a back four, and drop Perisic, and maybe went with 4-2-3-1. Yeah, but we know Mason likes Dyer, so I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, if
but because didn't Mason bring in Dyer straight away as soon as I think when Mourinho got sacked, I think he brought Dyer straight in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we had too much options at the time. Potentially, maybe Joe Rodon as well, but
we had Toby, we had Sanchez, we had Rodon. I think everyone was like having rotation. I think because during that season, Dyer was playing well for parts, and then there was a part I think just around when Mourinho was sacked where we dropped him. We dropped him, and then Mason brought him back in.
Yeah, I think we played a Dyer and Toby back in the back two, didn't we? When we in the cup final.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're looking at those four defenders, I mean, I probably would have picked those two as well. I mean, I probably would have picked Dyer over Rodon and Sanchez too. But now we do have more variations of centre-backs, albeit they're not that much better. But if we're going to go for a back four, I would like to see Davis at left-back for sure. And I would like to see Longley and Romero alongside each other.
If he really wants to, try and do something, he could do a 4-2-3-1. Skip and Højbjerg in the pivot, Kulusevski in the hole with Danjuma or Richarlison and Son with supporting Kane. That could be something interesting. And yes, you could argue again, we could be completely cut open at the back, and that's a possibility. If I feel like, to be honest, whatever defence we play, that's going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to happen to the same extent it happened on Sunday. That was just atrocious, 100%. But I feel like Mason wants to play a back four. I feel like he'll be scared into playing a back four after what happened on Sunday. So because of that, he might take the easy option and just go back to a back three and try and deal with that situation. But I think he probably wants to play a back four in his perfect scenario.
I think probably everyone wants to play a back four, but the reality is we don't have defenders comfortable enough to play a back four. That's just the reality of the situation. I mean, Perisic, not good enough in a back four. Dyer, not good enough in a back four. Porro, probably not good enough in a back four. Question marks over Romero as well. Question marks over Longley. So, I mean, there's question marks over all our defenders in a back four, but there's also question marks against all our defenders in a back five.
Exactly, that's the problem. So,
but at least in a back five, they got that more protection.
That's true. So, I guess it all depends on what Mason, because I think Mason wants these players to be able to give a reaction, and to do that, he needs to get these players closer to the Man United players so they can put in challenges and get close to them and get near to them. And it's all about what formation could facilitate that. A lot of the time in this season, this back five has been us sitting low. It's been us being very passive and waiting for the opposition and not being aggressive. Whereas logically in a back four, you get more players up the pitch, you get more players in the centre park, and in theory, you can get closer to the opposition. You can force more mistakes out of them, and we've seen Man United are susceptible to mistakes. You press them high. So I guess it depends. It depends what formation he sees best. I think it's a bit up in the air. It's 50-50 which one he can go, in my opinion. Some people will probably say he's definitely going to go back to a back three. I think he's probably considering both, in my opinion.
I think it's more likely we do see the back three, to be honest. I think that I can't see him being stupid. I don't think he's going to be stupid in his first game, and I think he wants to give us the best chance of having that defensive solidity, and I think we just don't have the players for a back four. So I do think we are going to go back three tomorrow. It just begs the question, are we going to go 3-4-3 or 3-5-2?
I think 3-5-2 allows us to be a bit more aggressive, in my opinion, than a 3-4-3, because the 3-4-3 there's just not enough cover in the middle at the moment, and these defenders can't step out, it seems, from the defence to help. It seems Dyer does that, but he's with very not very mixed results. He did well against Man City, but in other games it's been terrible when he stepped out. So I think you probably 3-5-2, but the question is, Sarr came off after 20 minutes. Is it Sarr who's going to come back in? Does Kulusevski make one of the three midfielders? From that point of view, I don't know if he wants to do that or if he wants to just wants to put players in their proper positions. And if he wants to do that, then Kulusevski has to go back out wide or a Danjuma or something. So again, I think he would probably want the extra body in midfield, but whether the players allow that, I don't know. So he's got a balancing act to what he wants to the players he has. I think he's got a careful balancing act to contend with going into Thursday. And I don't envy him because either thing you can see trouble, to be honest. But I guess it's about what is he going to do? Is he going to be brave and go with what he wants, or is he going to play safe and go with what players fit what position?
I think because it's the first game of his kind of 6 games until the end of the season, because he's only had a couple of days training with them, I think he's going to go more safe, to be honest. And I think it makes more sense to go that way as well. And then maybe, against Liverpool, you probably go the same way. But then when we start to see Palace come here and Brentford come here and, have a bit more easier games, let's say, we might see us go a bit more adventurous.
I'm obviously, I don't know. I don't know his mind. I think because he wants a reaction. I don't know if I reckon he's more likely to go with what he wants, because I think he's seen what it's been like playing the whole season with all these back three systems, more defensive, and I think he's because he wants a reaction in front of his home support. He's gonna say, look, we're gonna play aggressive. We're gonna put in challenges. We're gonna take the game to Man United, and we're gonna be positive.
But you can still do that in a back three, though.
You can do that in a back three, but whenever we've played the back three, we haven't been able to do that.
But that is because that is Conte and Stellini's version of the back three. Like when you look at the way Sporting Lisbon played against Arsenal in that back three, full out attacking, wing backs proper pushed up, creative play, midfielders being super aggressive. I mean, that's what I wanted to see in a back three for Spurs, and we never really saw that at the back end of last season, but we haven't seen that this season. So I think that's the way we want to play the back three. It just hasn't worked out for one reason or another. So maybe Mason can provide a few tactical tweaks in a back three and make us more aggressive and more attacking and more on the front foot.
Yeah, that's, I think, the perfect goal, in my opinion. But it's all about what's his preferred formation. I think when Mason took over 2 years ago, he wanted to play in a back four, and that was his preferred formation, and that's what we ended up doing. So will we want to revert back to that, or is he going to try and adjust his philosophy with the current formation that we've been playing? That's the big question mark. I would like to see him be brave, to be honest, and I know people won't want to hear it after our performance on Sunday, because we played a back four and we got absolutely annihilated. But I would like to see him be brave and go with what he wants to do, rather than like if he wants to play a certain formation and he wants to play a certain way, I'd rather he does that and gets whatever players he can that fits that way, rather than placating his squad with going with a formation that we've struggled with a lot of this season in terms of playing it in an aggressive and attacking way. I'd rather him, if he wants an extra body in midfield, I'd rather he does that, like puts that extra body in midfield, rather than and play that way that he wants. And that's what I think he wants to do, but I don't know for sure, obviously. Be interesting. I think it's completely up in the air. At the moment, I don't know what way he's going to play.
Look, I think in an ideal situation, I agree with you, but I don't think we're in an ideal situation, and we're at where we're at. And I just feel like if we are going to play a back four, it is going to be complete suicide, to be honest, against a Manchester United side who will know how to hurt us with big talent going forward, with Rashford, Anthony, Sabitzer, Eriksen, Weghorst, Martial. They've got such talent going forward. So I just feel like in a back four, we'll just get eaten alive. So I think you're right. He'll want to play the system that he wants to play, but I don't think he'll be stupid enough just to play it just because that's what the system he wants to play, if you know what I mean.
But I always feel like as well, when you're going through a half, if you're not fully committing to one or the other, that can also cause problems. So then the players aren't quite sure like how the team want to play, what position to be in all the time in certain situations. And I understand that there's only 2 training sessions or 3 training sessions in between the Newcastle game on Thursday, so it's tough to implement a whole system in such a short space of time. So that's probably what he's thinking about as well. But I also feel like that, but either way, it can cause issues. So, but basically what I'm just trying to say is if we do go with the back 4 on Thursday, I'm just hoping that he would have coached it in a different way where it can work a lot better than it did on Sunday. And I think it is possible, as much as people will see evidence of Sunday and think, okay, that means we can never play a back 4 ever again with these players. And that's a fair assessment to make, to be honest, after that performance. But I do think if you play the back 4, even with those defenders, in a different way, I think it can work. I think you can make it work in a different way even with those players. If you get them to have more composure on the ball, play it around the opposition, get forward a lot more, try and be a more aggressive, force mistakes. We didn't do any of that on Sunday. We just let Newcastle have the ball, and obviously if we let Man United have the ball, the same thing will happen, of course. But if Mason can get them to be more aggressive, get them to break up the play, be in their faces, get higher to pitch, force mistakes, I think we can have a better performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a better performance is just losing 3 or 4-1 instead of 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably going to lose anyway, but either way, in my opinion. But I do think if we play this right, I think there is a way we can get points out in this game.
Well, having said that, what is your score prediction coming into it?
I said 2-2. And I don't think that's a good result for Tottenham, to be honest. 2-2, as much as obviously avoiding defeat, you could argue it's not bad considering we lost 6-1 away to United, Newcastle. I think 2-2 just because Man United are not great away from home. They've got susceptible defence. I do think there's going to be a bit of reaction from Tottenham in terms of being more aggressive and getting in their faces. So I do think we can force mistakes, and with the quality, I'm hoping that there'll be a couple of occasions we can punish them. But I do think our defence, whatever way you slice it, back 4, back 5, they're not good enough right now. They're too open, and I don't see them being able to contain Man United side will roll with Rashford back. Even without Bruno, they've got Eriksen, they've got Sabitzer, they've got players who are able to open us up, and they've got the strikers in Rashford who are able to finish them. So I do see us concede a couple goals, but I've gone for us to score a couple. So 2-2.
I just got a feeling that we will come out the traps quite well tomorrow night and maybe start with a bit of a fast pace. But I feel like once the game settles in, Man United will just overawe us. Their quality will shine through, and maybe the nerves will start settling in for Tottenham as well. So, look, I think we could get an early goal, but I do ultimately think we will lose the game, and I'm going to go for 3-1 to Manchester United, as much as it pains me to say it. But that is our score predictions. That is our match preview. Let me know in the comments section below your thoughts on the game and what your score predictions are.